I'm Em,
And I'm Lex.
and we're thrilled to welcome you to the Ready, Set, Coach podcast.
Now, we're not just your hosts. We're also mamas, entrepreneurs, coaches, friends, and co-founders of the Ready, Set, Coach community.
What began as a pandemic side hustle has blossomed into a vibrant online community crafted by coaches for coaches.
So when we're not immersed in our coaching community on Circle, we're busy managing our other businesses, navigating the ups and downs of life, and of course, recording this podcast.
This is where we dive deep into epic conversations about life, business, coaching,
and everything in between.
So are you ready, Lex?
I'm set, Em.
Let's coach.
Calvina, I am so excited to have you on the Ready, Set, Coach podcast today.
Thank you so much, Emily. I love it. I love you. I love this whole community. It's been so amazing for me to connect with so many amazing people in our community. So thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, it's funny. So I have my own podcast, and this podcast Lex and I do together. And the podcast I host is more like a version of how I built this and interviewing people, their questions, where if you've listened to this podcast before, it's a lot of times just Lex and I making fun of each other and then giving you some valuable advice. So you're going to be my Lex today, but don't worry, I won't make fun of you.
You can.
Okay. Well, so Calvina Nguyen, before we jump in, we're going to have a really fun conversation today about building a brand for coaches and some big mistakes that coaches make. But
Yes.
Before we dive in, can you give us just a little background of who you are and where you're based?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm based in California, in Sacramento specifically. So it's very hot and very dry here. And it gets very cold here. I mean, I'm not cold in compared to some other parts of the country, but it's kind of it's probably one of the more extreme parts of California. So I have had about 20 years of experience in the creative field. I started off, my training and my background is in graphic design. I started off in the agency world, doing all of the things. Actually, I was really lucky to start in a really small firm. So I was able to, wear a lot of different hats, as in I did, my specialty was logo design. And that was my favorite. Logo, I feel like, is one of the hardest things to design. But I loved it. Not everyone loved it. I did packaging, I did websites, I did, brochures, like printed stuff. And so I loved it. And then, I evolved to actually my first love, which is photography. So I owned my own photography company for 15 years.
Wow.
And so, over the course of the pandemic, I knew photography wasn't like the final step for me. And I had wanted to kind of pivot out of that. But it was one of those things, you stay so busy that you just don't, you don't take that time. So pandemic happens, and it was a blessing because it gave me that time, because nobody can go out. A lot of, sessions, you can't go out doing photography. And then so that perfect opportunity for me to really sit down and evaluate everything. And I knew, since my photography, I was working with small businesses and doing branding. And so I feel like my background, I've had things from both sides, like, being the designer, and then now doing photography and working with creative directors, and like, being able to hear about their vision and then convey the vision of creative directors to make sure that the photography is on brand and, all of that stuff. And then now, in a place where I really want to put all of that together into branding. And I feel like this is why I wanted to do branding, is because branding is so important in design. And when you are a designer, a lot of time you are not paying attention to the overall business and the marketing aspect. And so, a designer is, you're trained to make things beautiful. You're a problem solver. So you already got the problem there, and then you're solving it. So that's why where I am now, it's about like bridging the gap, right? Of the design, like the implementation, and getting the business, and then like making sure all of that stuff is working cohesively to make sure that you're getting your return on investment in your design.
Yeah. Well, I want to even back up. I love the fact that you started your career designing logos. And, when you started your career, what was the software that was being used at the time?
what was software? Oh, Adobe all the way, always Adobe. I mean, it's been basically in college, that's what I learned. Adobe. There's never been a change. It's still Adobe. I mean, like when it comes to I still think that is the top for creating the final design. There is still no better replacement for that. But Canva has come and now taken the place of, it doesn't take the place of Adobe by any means. But it has taken the place of helping people who are not designers be able to utilize and create a voice for them, right? And then so there needs to still be Adobe, right? And then for the original bespoke feel, but Canva is really like a mind-blowing, like game changer for small businesses.
It really is. Like you think, even when I started my business, I think Canva was relatively new. That was like 2016. And I always felt so limited because I didn't know how to drive Adobe or InDesign. And it can be daunting, to your point, even about like brand and designers. I don't have a designer eye in terms of, I don't have that perfectionism, fortunately and unfortunately, all at once. But there is that aspect of like, you want to build a brand, but it can feel so overwhelming with where to start, or what if I don't like these colors in a month, or how do you commit to something for a foreseeable future? So I'm curious to hear your thoughts about coaches and let's start with mistakes first, like some mistakes that you've seen coaches make when building a brand or starting a business.
Yeah. I think the first thing that comes to mind when I think about like say mistakes or is not getting the messaging down and not knowing how to articulate yourself to connect with the perfect audience. And I feel like that's always the first place to start. And to be quite honest, this design is the very last thing you want to think about. And it's not the first thing you think about. And so another mistake is to think about the logo first, to think about all the colors and get obsessed with that, because that's going to waste a lot of time. That's not where you want to go. And you're going to spend all of the time creating a bunch of mishmash things that like doesn't at all convey who you are. And then, so I think it's really important to lay a foundation first, to understand your industry. Like, so where are you positioned in your industry? You want to understand what is your own voice? Like, how do you want to communicate? What is authentic to you? But most importantly is to truly, truly get into the heart of your audience and to know them to a T, because without knowing this, then you're basically throwing spaghetti at the wall. And, you're not nailing it. So you're going to be creating these designs that are just random and it looks good, but it's really not landing. And so, And then, so I think, so those three things is like, know your industry, know who you're talking to, know your own message, know it really well, when to say it, how to say it, like timing too.
1,000%. And I'm with you on the distraction piece of obsessing over the colors or obsessing over the logo. Or so I know so many people that they will delay launching their business until their brand is perfect. And I get it. If you were a high luxury fashion brand, maybe it's different. But I think as a coach, oftentimes we're scared of testing what is possible, or like trying out our offerings first before even making the website the most perfect thing ever.
100%. And I work with I work with coaches. I also work with some service-based businesses. I work with product-based businesses. And so there's actually like differences between these industries, right? Like, and coaches especially, and I'm going to like warn coaches, right? Like the last thing you want to do is obsess over your logo. And because as coaches, your name is the most important thing. And so just go with that for now. And, seriously, don't obsess about that. There will come a time. I mean, I'm going to be honest. There will come a time in your career where having that logo is going to be a really good thing. And it's going to be one of the best investments. But it's about, again, timing. And then like, so and when you're in the beginning, don't waste your time on that. And don't even waste your time on the colors. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I feel like it's really important to set your foundations and your brand foundations, which is the first step before you get to, you know, all of the visuals. And I'm not like, and that's the thing is that I'm like, am I shooting myself in the foot? No, like I do think that, and this is like coming from somebody who's like bread and butter is the design. So I am truly being honest, and that there is a time when you need a designer, you know, and that's, and your investment will, you know, you will have a great investment in your, you know, a return in your investment at some point, right? That is when you have taken traction, you have, you know, massaged your offers, you have gotten a sense of what is making sense, you are making the money, and you are, you know, all of that stuff, and you are able to like, to really create that, because now at that next level is where you're ready to make that investment. But at all, like in all of this though, there needs to be a brand foundation that is started, no matter where you are. Like, and I feel like this brand foundation can be revisited over and over again because it changes over time. Like where your brand foundation is in the beginning, where your brand, like every year, I feel like I need to do this with my clients. It's like, okay, where are you now? Let's set your new, like, let's figure out where you are now. And then so that way, you know, there's a roadmap. Like I love to create roadmaps for people because that roadmap sometimes can include the design, but a lot of time is like massaging your voice, figuring out what is like, what's landing, what's not. And then when you are able to figure out what's landing, man, like you can get to that design and then like that'll skyrocket you to the next level because, you know, the whole thing with like visuals is that like it speaks for you before you can speak. And that's why it's powerful. That's why the investment is important, is that you don't want to look like a hack. And, you know, the presentation means something. That's why we have style. We have our sense of style. We invest in clothing because we don't go out, you know, wearing rags, and because that impression does something for us, but it's about the timing.
Hey everyone, Lex here.
And M.
And if you haven't heard, we did something pretty darn cool.
We sure did. We launched a completely free community built specifically for coaches.
Say it again for the people in the back.
We launched a free community for coaches. Tell them quickly who it's for and what we're doing inside, Lex.
Sure thing. So it's for anyone from the coaching curious to side hustlers to coaches ready to scale. And through the virtual platform that we've built, we've created a safe and fun space to learn, launch, grow, connect, ideate, collaborate, vent, and evolve together.
Nailed it, Lex. Now, while it's free, you must apply in order to gain a free membership. You know, so we can make sure everyone inside is awesome, like us.
Apply today at readysetcoachcommunity.com.
It's so true. I will share my first logo, bless my roommate, but my roommate was a designer, is a designer. She's now so much farther up than she was then. But I said to her, I want my logo to feel like a warm hug. And I wanted it just to be a type font. Like I wanted it just written out. I didn't need it to be overcomplicated. I didn't want it to be like a sexy icon or whatnot. And she just picked a font. She gave me a few fonts. She's like, what do you think? I picked the font, bada bing, bada boom. I had a logo and it cost me $0. And I even, I heard an interview with James Clear and he talked about that too. Like he is a best-selling author and his very first logo was something that he put in like a Google Doc and then saved as, and that was his logo.
Yeah.
So, you know, just the overcomplication of things. If we can simplify, that's a great way to start.
Yep.
And Calvina, you are such a genius. You obviously speak Adobe fluently, but you are such an advocate for people to understand Canva and to leverage Canva, especially small businesses. What advice do you have for people who are attempting to build this brand and they're using Canva as a resource?
So I think one of the most important things my first advice is to go ahead and invest in the pro account.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Don't use the free account. Because the pro account has so much to offer. And so just like bite the bullet and do it. And then the second of all is that the pro account gives you access to the brand kit.
Yes.
And this brand kit saves you so much time, right? Like it is, you know, like whatever you have of your logo, stick it in there. Whatever you have of your colors, stick it in there, your fonts. And then you can constantly tweak it if you want to, if you haven't figured it out. And then but it just allows you to just, oh my gosh, because AI in Canva is like next level, and it's getting better and better and better, that like sometimes you can throw all that stuff in there if you have a branding done, right? And this is, and again, you know, like you do still, this is why you do want your logo, you do want your colors, because you do, you do still need it. I'm not saying you don't need it at all, but like having all that stuff, because you have to make marketing materials at the end of the day, you do, like you have to make the, you got to create freebies, you got to create your workbooks, you've got to create your social media posts, or even like the header to like, or you know, if you have like a free workshop, you got to create something for that. And so you don't want to obsess over like creating over things over and over again. So like getting that brand kit done there is going to be so good. And actually, you've downloaded my free
I
free
have it. It's
so
awesome.
yeah, I can share that with
we can link it. We can link it in the notes.
We can link it. Yeah. And then so like, so it's so you can get that set up. So I walk you through literally step by step on how to get that set up. And then so from there, there's so much AI that can like, you're like, I need to make a social media post, and you can click on, like, it'll just automatically generate a design for you based on your brand kit.
It's incredible. It's incredible what AI can do. And it's also incredible how, to what you mentioned, like how sophisticated Canva has gotten, especially for the person, which I'll say I'm like an ideal user. I don't identify as being a creative. I get really overwhelmed. So like the templates that they have, the tools in which they make it really plug and play are truly a game changer, and save you a buck, so much money than versus, oh my gosh, I think back to like my fashion days, and we needed to create an evite, and it would go through 3 rounds of approval, even though it was templatized in Adobe, to get sent back to us.
Exactly. That's the world I basically grew up in. That's the world I grew up in. And that's why I was delighted with Canva. And it's so funny because, you know, like a lot of designers still basically, blah, you know, like, and let me be honest, I was one of the snotty designers, like snobby designers that said, okay, Canva, you know, like it's so amateur. And so I was there too, to be honest. And then so there's like this point when I was like, this is amazing. And you know, and when you recognize that this is not made for design, you know, it's like, it's made for non-designers. And then so it's like, it's made for my clients.
Yes.
When I am able to put myself aside and like my design ego aside, and then like say, I need to do what's best for my clients and help them set that. And then now integrating this amazing tool for what is best for them, and creating like, and then integrating that into a strategy as I continue to build a brand for them. That was the game changer. So I still use Adobe to create the bespoke brands that I do.
Yeah.
But I am creating also a system for my Canva, I mean, for my clients in Canva, so that they're not going through the 3 rounds of approval, like what
I just told you. Oh my God, it was awful.
Right. Awful.
Well, it's funny. My husband's the head of design at a company, and you know, he's like you. He pish poshes at Canva, and even he did my recent logo, and I think he did it in, I don't know, Figma. Can you design in Figma?
I think so. Yeah. I'm not well versed. Yeah.
Me neither. I'm like, I don't know. I think he gave it to me somehow in a way that I'm still like, what format is this in? Thank you so much. But he always complains how like the marketing people will kind of go behind his back and just use Canva to send like evites and things like that. So I know there's definitely that discrepancy like internally at certain companies. It's faster, but also is it what the design team standards are? So I empathize on both ends because I've seen both and I have been to both, but yeah, oh God, it would drive me bonkers. I was like, there's a typo, and then like 24 hours later I'd get it back. And I was like, the event's tomorrow at this point, basically, you know, versus how quickly we produce things at this moment in time, just like batch sending and creating on Canva. So very
Exactly.
grateful for that. So Calvina, I am curious, what is the best way for people to find out more, to learn about working with you, to learn about the incredible resources you provide, just to learn more about like your perspective of branding and get into your head and world?
I'm pretty active on social media. And so, Instagram, it's at Your Brand Spark, TikTok, at Your Brand Spark. And then I think that if I am such a huge, like I mentioned, I feel like the foundation is the most important thing. So if you want to work with me, like I am inviting you just to book a call with me because that foundation, and right currently, I mean, it's a free call. I want people to have that foundation so much. This is the most important thing when it comes to your business. I feel like this is critical. It is mission critical to have that foundation because that foundation is a roadmap to your, like, even in terms of like where you want to go in your marketing, because where do you want to put your efforts? Because when it comes to branding, it's all about like connecting all the dots and pieces. So if you go to my my website, actually any of these, like my website is also Your Brand Spark, all over. So yeah, just book that call because I would love to be able to talk to you if that's something that's interesting. If you're curious about your where your foundation is, who you're talking to, your positioning, and all of that stuff. That's what I want to. That's my heart, the heart of what I want to do.
I love it. Well, I am so grateful for you and for your advice and also for what you're doing and empowering people in their branding, and making it that much more approachable wherever they are in their journey. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And with that, we will see you the next time on the Ready, Set, Coach podcast. Thanks for coming, Calvina.
Thank you, Emily. Bye.
If you're enjoying the Ready, Set, Coach podcast, please leave a review wherever you are listening. For more information about Ready, Set, Coach, visit readysetcoachprogram.com.